The snow fell so thick that afternoon in December of 1883 that Amanda Jenkins could barely see 3 feet ahead of her staggering horse, and she knew with cold certainty that she was going to die alone on Christmas Day in the Colorado mountains. She had been traveling from Denver to meet her aunt in Cripple Creek, a mining town that promised a fresh start after her parents had succumbed to influenza the previous winter. At 22 years old, Amanda had sold everything she owned to make this journey, clutching a letter from her mother's sister that promised warmth, family, and a place to belong. But the stagecoach had lost a wheel 15 miles back, and the driver, after assessing the damage and the worsening storm, had unhitched the horses and told the passengers they would have to make their own way. Most had chosen to ride double back toward Denver. Amanda, stubborn and determined, had pressed forward on the one horse the driver could spare, convinced she could make it to Cripple Creek before nightfall. That had been 4 hours ago. The pale winter sun had already disappeared behind the mountain peaks, and the temperature was dropping fast. Her fingers were numb inside her thin gloves, her face stinging from the relentless wind. The horse beneath her stumbled again, and Amanda felt tears freeze on her cheeks. She had no idea if she was even still on the road. Everything looked the same now, just endless white in every direction. The horse stopped moving entirely, its head hanging low, flanks heaving. Amanda tried to urge it forward, but the animal would not budge. She dismounted on shaking legs, her boots sinking deep into the snow. She tried to pull the horse forward by its reins, but it was no use. The animal was exhausted, and so was she. Amanda sank down against a large pine tree, pulling her coat tighter around herself. This was it then. She would freeze to death on Christmas, alone in the wilderness, and no one would even know where to look for her body until spring. She thought of her parents, buried side by side in the Denver cemetery, and wondered if she would see them soon. The thought was almost comforting. She closed her eyes against the wind and the cold and began to pray. She did not know how much time had passed when she heard the sound of hooves crunching through snow. At first, she thought she was dreaming, that her mind was playing tricks as she slipped toward unconsciousness. But then a deep voice cut through the wind, urgent and commanding. "Madam. Madam, can you hear me?" Amanda forced her eyes open. Through the swirling snow, she saw a figure on horseback, tall and broad-shouldered, wrapped in a heavy coat with a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. He dismounted in one fluid motion and crouched beside her, and she found herself looking into the most striking gray eyes she had ever seen, set in a weathered, handsome face darkened by sun and wind. "You are alive," he said, and she heard relief in his voice. "Thank God. Can you stand?" "I do not think so," Amanda managed through chattering teeth. "I am very cold. I know you are." His voice was gentle now, reassuring. "My name is William Garrett. I have a ranch not far from here. I am going to get you somewhere warm, all right." Amanda tried to nod, but her body would not cooperate. She felt him lift her as easily as if she weighed nothing, felt the strength in his arms as he carried her to his horse. He settled her in front of his saddle, then mounted behind her, wrapping one arm securely around her waist while holding the reins with the other. He pulled a thick wool blanket from his saddlebag and wrapped it around her, tucking it close. "What about my horse?" Amanda whispered. "I will tie him on. Do not worry." William did just that, securing the exhausted animal to his own horse with a lead rope. Then he pulled Amanda back against his chest, and she felt the warmth of his body seeping through the layers of clothing between them. "Stay with me now. Talk to me." "What is your name, Amanda?" "Amanda Jenkins." "Amanda, that is a pretty name. Where were you headed, Amanda?" "Cripple Creek, to my aunt." "Cripple Creek is still 10 miles east. You were headed in the wrong direction." A sob caught in Amanda's throat. I was lost. I know. But you are found now. His arm tightened around her, and she felt the horse begin to move beneath them, steady and sure despite the storm. I have got you. You are safe. Amanda wanted to stay awake, to remain alert, but the combination of cold and exhaustion and the rhythmic movement of the horse was too much. She felt herself drifting, her head falling back against William's shoulder. "Stay awake, Amanda," he said, his voice close to her ear. "Talk to me. Tell me about your aunt." "Her name is Margaret," Amanda said, forcing the words out. "She is my mother's sister. I have not seen her since I was a child. My parents died. I have nowhere else to go. I am sorry about your parents." His voice was sincere, full of a kindness that made her throat tighten. "But you have somewhere to go now, just a little farther. Can you see those lights ahead?" Amanda squinted through the snow and saw, in the distance, the warm glow of windows. A ranch house, solid and welcoming, with smoke rising from the chimney. Outbuildings clustered nearby, and she could make out the shapes of a barn and corrals. "That is home," William said. "We are almost there." The next several minutes passed in a blur. William brought the horses right up to the front porch, dismounted, and lifted Amanda down. He kicked the door open and carried her inside, calling out as he did, "Sarah, Sarah, I need help." A woman appeared from another room, middle-aged and motherly, with graying hair and a face creased with concern. "Lord have mercy, what happened?" "Found her in the snow. She is half frozen. Get blankets and hot water and stoke the fire higher." William carried Amanda to a large stone fireplace where flames already crackled and placed her gently in a rocking chair close to the heat. Sarah disappeared and returned moments later with an armful of blankets and a basin of water. Together, they worked to remove Amanda's snow-caked coat and boots, wrapping her in the warm blankets and placing her frozen hands in the warm water. Amanda gasped at the sensation, pins and needles shooting through her fingers as feeling began to return. "It hurts." "I know," William said, crouching beside her, his hands supporting hers in the water. "That means the blood is flowing again. That is good." Sarah pressed a cup of hot tea into her hands once they were sufficiently warmed. "Drink this, dear, small sips." Amanda obeyed, the hot liquid burning a path down her throat and into her stomach. Gradually, the violent shivering that had gripped her began to subside, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. She looked around the room for the first time, taking in the rough-hewn furniture, the Christmas wreath hanging on the wall, the stockings on the mantel. A small pine tree stood in the corner, decorated with strings of popcorn and berries. "It is Christmas," she said softly. "I forgot." "You almost spent it frozen in a snowbank," Sarah said, her voice sharp with concern. "What were you thinking, traveling alone in weather like this?" "The stagecoach broke down. I thought I could make it." William shook his head. "You are lucky to be alive." Another hour out there and we would not be having this conversation. "How did you find me?" Amanda asked, looking up at him. He had removed his hat, revealing dark hair streaked with gray at the temples. He was older than her, she realized, perhaps in his early 30s, with the weathered look of a man who spent his life outdoors. "I was checking on the cattle in the north pasture. I saw your tracks in the snow before they filled in completely. Followed them until I found you." He met her eyes, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "God must have wanted me in that particular place at that particular time." "I prayed," Amanda whispered. "Right before you came, I prayed. Then your prayer was answered." William stood, stepping back. "Sarah, can you help Miss Jenkins get into some dry clothes? I need to see to the horses." "Of course." Sarah set down her tea and helped Amanda to her feet. Her legs were unsteady, but with the older woman's support, she managed to walk. "Come with me, dear. I will find you something warm to wear." Amanda followed Sarah down a hallway and into a small bedroom. The room was simple but comfortable, with a quilt-covered bed and a dresser topped with an oil lamp. Sarah rummaged through the dresser and produced a long flannel nightgown and a thick wool robe. "These belonged to William's mother," Sarah explained. "She passed 3 years ago. About your size, I would say." "I do not want to intrude," Amanda said, suddenly aware that she was imposing on these strangers who had saved her life. "If you could just point me toward Cripple Creek in the morning, I will be on my way." Sarah made a dismissive sound. "Nonsense. You will stay here until you are properly recovered and until this storm passes. Now, let us get you out of those wet things." With Sarah's help, Amanda changed into the dry nightgown and robe. The flannel was soft and warm against her skin, and she felt human again for the first time in hours. Sarah braided her long auburn hair and led her back to the main room, where William had returned and was adding more wood to the fire. He looked up as they entered, and Amanda saw his eyes widen slightly as he took her in. She felt suddenly self-conscious, standing there in a borrowed nightgown with her feet bare. "Much better," Sarah declared. "Now you must be starving, child. When did you last eat?" "Yesterday morning," Amanda admitted. "Yesterday," Sarah threw up her hands. "Lord have mercy, sit down right now. I will get you some supper." Amanda sank back into the rocking chair, and William took a seat across from her in a worn leather armchair. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the firelight casting dancing shadows across his face. "Thank you," Amanda said quietly. "You saved my life." William shook his head. "Any decent person would have done the same. But you are the one who did it. You could have stayed inside by your fire on Christmas Day, but you went out to check on your cattle. If you had not, I would have died out there. Do not think about what might have happened. You are here now, and you are safe." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Tell me about yourself, Amanda Jenkins. What made a young woman like you take such a risk?" So Amanda told him. She told him about growing up in St. Louis, about her father's work as a banker and her mother's love of gardening. She told him about the influenza epidemic that had swept through the city the previous winter, taking both her parents within a week of each other. She told him about the debts her father had left behind, debts she had not known existed until the bank came to collect. About selling the house and everything in it to pay what was owed, and finding herself alone in the world at 22 with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. "Then I received a letter from my Aunt Margaret," Amanda said. "She is my mother's older sister. She moved to Cripple Creek years ago when the gold was discovered. She owns a boarding house there. She invited me to come live with her to help her run the business." It seemed like an answer to my prayers. "It was," William said. "Just not in the way you expected." Before Amanda could respond, Sarah returned with a plate piled high with roast beef, potatoes, and carrots, along with thick slices of bread and butter. The smell made Amanda's stomach clench with hunger, and she ate ravenously, barely pausing between bites. William watched her with a slight smile. "When was the last time you had a proper meal?" Amanda swallowed a mouthful of potatoes. "It has been a while. I was trying to make my money last until I reached Cripple Creek." "You will eat well here," Sarah said firmly. "I will not have anyone going hungry under this roof, especially not on Christmas." Amanda set down her fork, stricken. "Christmas? I forgot again. I am intruding on your Christmas Day." "You are not intruding," William said. "You are a blessing." Amanda blinked at him, confused. "How could I possibly be a blessing? I am a burden, an uninvited guest who has disrupted your holiday." William was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes thoughtful. "This ranch has been quiet for a long time. Too quiet. My mother died 3 years ago, as Sarah mentioned. My father passed when I was 20. I have been running this place alone ever since, with just Sarah to help with the house. Christmas has not felt like Christmas in a very long time." He paused, then smiled, and Amanda felt her heart skip. "But tonight, with you here, it feels different. It feels like the holiday means something again." "William is too modest to tell you," Sarah interjected. "But he has spent every Christmas for the past 3 years delivering food and supplies to families in need around the county. He never keeps the day for himself." "That is what anyone would do," William said, clearly uncomfortable with the praise. "No, it is not," Sarah said flatly. "Most people think of themselves first. You always think of others." Amanda looked at this man who had saved her life, this man who spent his Christmases helping those less fortunate, and felt something shift in her chest. She had been so focused on her own survival, her own grief and loss, that she had forgotten there were good people in the world. People who helped strangers without expecting anything in return. "Thank you," she said again, and this time the words carried a weight they had not before. "Thank you for everything." William held her gaze. "You are welcome, and you will stay here as long as you need to. The storm shows no sign of stopping, and even when it does, the roads will be impassable for days. But my aunt will be worried. She is expecting me. We will send word as soon as we can. Cripple Creek is not far. Once the weather clears, I will ride over and let her know you are safe." Amanda nodded, relief flooding through her. She finished her meal and Sarah took the empty plate, shooing her toward the bedroom. "You need rest, child. You have been through an ordeal." Amanda did not argue. Her body ached with exhaustion and the warm food had made her drowsy. She bid William and Sarah good night and made her way to the small bedroom, crawling beneath the heavy quilts and sinking into the soft mattress. As she lay there in the darkness, listening to the wind howl outside and the muffled voices of William and Sarah in the other room, Amanda thought about how close she had come to death. And she thought about the man who had saved her, appearing out of the storm like an answer to her desperate prayer. She fell asleep with a strange feeling in her heart, something she had not felt since before her parents died. It took her a moment to identify it, and when she did, tears slipped down her cheeks. Hope. For the first time in over a year, Amanda Jenkins felt hope. She woke to bright sunlight streaming through the small window and the smell of coffee and bacon. For a disoriented moment, she did not know where she was, but then memory flooded back. The storm. The cold. William Garrett finding her in the snow. Amanda rose and dressed quickly in her own clothes, which someone had laundered and dried overnight. She followed the sounds and smells to the kitchen, where she found Sarah at the stove and William at the table, nursing a cup of coffee. "Good morning," William said, rising to his feet as she entered. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," Amanda admitted. "Thank you for washing my clothes." "That was Sarah's doing. Sit down. Breakfast is nearly ready." Amanda took a seat across from William, accepting the cup of coffee Sarah poured for her. Through the window, she could see that the storm had passed, leaving the world buried in pristine white snow that sparkled in the sunlight. "It is beautiful," she said. "And deadly," William added. "The drifts are 6 feet high in places." "It will be at least a week before the main roads are clear enough for travel." Amanda set down her coffee cup. "A week, but I cannot impose on your hospitality for that long." "You are not imposing, and you have no choice. Even if you wanted to leave, there is nowhere to go. The passes are snowed in." Sarah set plates of eggs, bacon, and biscuits in front of them. "Stop fretting, child. We are happy to have you. It is nice to have another woman in the house, someone I can talk to besides this stubborn man." William smiled at that, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. "Sarah has been threatening to find me a wife for years. I think she sees you as a potential candidate." Sarah swatted him with a dish towel. "Hush, you, though the good Lord knows it is true. A man your age should have a family." Amanda felt her cheeks heat, and she focused on her breakfast to hide her embarrassment, but she found herself curious. "You have never married." William's smile faded, replaced by something more somber. "I was engaged once. Her name was Catherine. She died of scarlet fever 2 months before our wedding. That was 8 years ago. I am so sorry." Amanda's hand moved instinctively across the table, covering his. "I know what it is like to lose someone you love." William looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. "Yes, I suppose you do." They stayed like that for a moment, connected by shared grief and understanding, until Sarah cleared her throat loudly and they both pulled away, flustered. After breakfast, William excused himself to tend to the animals, and Sarah put Amanda to work helping with the daily chores. Amanda was grateful for something to do, for a way to feel useful rather than like a burden. She helped Sarah wash dishes, sweep floors, and prepare bread dough for the next day. They talked as they worked, and Amanda learned that Sarah was a widow whose own ranch had failed after her husband's death. William had hired her as his housekeeper 5 years ago, giving her a place to live and meaningful work. "He is a good man," Sarah said as they kneaded dough together. "The best I have ever known. He works himself to the bone keeping this ranch running, and he never complains. He deserves happiness." "He seems happy enough," Amanda said carefully. Sarah shook her head. "He is content. That is not the same thing as happy. A man needs more than work and duty. He needs love, companionship, a family of his own." She gave Amanda a significant look. "He needs someone to share his life with." Amanda felt her cheeks warm again. "Sarah, I only just met him yesterday." Sometimes that is all it takes. One moment, one meeting, and everything changes. Sarah shaped her dough into a loaf and set it aside to rise. "I am not saying you should marry him tomorrow. I am just saying, pay attention. God works in mysterious ways." Amanda thought about that conversation as she helped Sarah hang laundry on lines strung across the kitchen to dry, the frigid temperatures outside making outdoor drying impossible. She thought about William's gray eyes, the gentleness in his voice, the strength in his arms as he had carried her to safety. She thought about how she had felt when his hand covered hers at breakfast, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire in the hearth. She was still thinking about it when William came back inside at midday, stomping snow from his boots and unwinding his scarf. His cheeks were reddened from the cold, his hair disheveled. "How are the animals?" Sarah asked. "Fed and watered. The barn is secure. We should be fine for the next few days." He looked at Amanda. "Would you like to see the ranch? I could show you around if you are interested." Amanda's heart leaped. "I would like that very much." She bundled up in her coat and the spare hat and gloves Sarah provided and followed William outside. The air was brutally cold but perfectly still, the sun brilliant in a cloudless blue sky. Snow crunched beneath their boots as they walked toward the barn. "How big is your ranch?" Amanda asked. 500 acres. I run about 200 head of cattle, plus horses. It is not the biggest spread in the area, but it is mine. My grandfather homesteaded this land in 1850, right after Colorado became a territory. My father expanded it, and I have worked to keep it going." He opened the barn door, and Amanda stepped into the dim, hay-scented warmth. Horses nickered from their stalls, and she saw the horse that had carried her through the storm, now brushed and fed and content. "She looks much better," Amanda said, walking over to stroke the mare's nose. William corrected with a smile. "And yes, a night of rest did him good, just like it did you." Amanda moved down the line of stalls, admiring the horses. They were beautiful animals, well cared for and healthy. "Do you raise them?" "Some. I breed working horses mostly, animals that can handle the mountain terrain. There is always a market for good horses. They continued the tour, William showing her the chicken coop, the smokehouse, the root cellar dug deep into the hillside. He explained the rhythms of ranch life, the endless cycle of work that changed with the seasons. Amanda listened, fascinated. She had lived her whole life in cities, first St. Louis and then Denver. This was a completely different world, one of hard physical labor and direct connection to the land. "It sounds difficult," she said as they walked back toward the house. "It is," William admitted, "but it is also rewarding. When you work the land, when you raise animals and grow crops, you are connected to something bigger than yourself. You are part of the cycle of life. There is meaning in that purpose." Amanda understood what he meant. In the city, she had often felt adrift, disconnected from anything real or lasting. Here, despite the harshness of the environment, there was a solidity, a permanence that appealed to something deep within her. They stopped on the porch and William turned to face her. "I am glad you are here, Amanda. I know the circumstances were not ideal, but I am glad nonetheless." "So am I," she said softly, and realized she meant it. "Yesterday in the snow, I thought I was going to die. I thought my story was over. But you found me. You brought me here. You gave me a second chance." William reached out and tucked a strand of hair that had escaped her braid behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Maybe we gave each other a second chance." Amanda's breath caught at the touch, at the intensity in his eyes. She swayed toward him, drawn by something she could not name, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. But then the door opened and Sarah appeared, breaking the spell. "There you two are. Come inside before you freeze. I have hot cider ready." The moment passed, but Amanda felt its echo in her racing heart as she followed William into the warmth of the house. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Amanda rose early and helped Sarah with breakfast, then spent her mornings assisting with household chores. In the afternoons, she often accompanied William as he worked around the ranch, learning how to feed the chickens, collect eggs, and muck out stalls. The work was harder than anything she had done before, but she found she enjoyed it. There was satisfaction in completing physical tasks, in seeing the tangible results of her labor, and there was William. Every day, Amanda found herself more drawn to him. She loved the way he moved with quiet confidence, the way he spoke gently to the animals, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. She loved his stories about growing up on the ranch, his dreams of expanding the herd and breeding better horses. She loved his laugh, rare but genuine, and the way he listened when she spoke, giving her his full attention as if her words were the most important thing in the world. She caught him watching her sometimes, his expression unreadable, and felt heat rise in her cheeks. The attraction between them was undeniable, a current that ran beneath every conversation, every accidental touch, but neither of them acted on it. Amanda told herself it was too soon, that she barely knew him, that she was still bound for Cripple Creek and her aunt's boarding house. But late at night, lying in bed in the darkness, she let herself imagine what it would be like to stay, to make a life here with this quiet, honorable man who had saved her life. On the third day, William announced that he was going to attempt the ride to Cripple Creek to notify Amanda's aunt that she was safe. The main road was still impassable, but he knew back trails through the mountains that might be clear enough. "I do not want her worrying about you any longer than necessary," he said over breakfast. Amanda nodded, grateful. "Thank you. I have been so worried about what she must be thinking. I will leave right after breakfast and be back before dark." But Sarah frowned. "Are you sure it is safe? Those trails can be treacherous even in good weather." "I know them like the back of my hand. I will be careful." Amanda felt a strange pang of fear at the thought of William leaving, of something happening to him out there in the snow. Maybe I should write a letter instead. We could wait until the roads are clearer. William smiled at her concern. I will be fine, Amanda. I promise. He left an hour later, bundled against the cold, riding a sturdy bay gelding that picked its way carefully through the deep snow. Amanda stood on the porch and watched until he disappeared from sight, a gnawing worry in her stomach that she could not shake. The day dragged without William there. Amanda tried to stay busy, helping Sarah with the laundry and preparing supper, but she found herself constantly drawn to the windows, scanning the horizon for his return. Sarah noticed, of course, and gave her a knowing smile. You care about him. It was not a question. Amanda did not bother denying it. I do. I know it is foolish. I have only known him a few days. The heart does not follow the same calendar as the rest of us, Sarah said gently. I knew I loved my husband the day I met him. We were married 3 weeks later and had 30 good years together before he passed. Do not dismiss your feelings just because they came quickly. But I am supposed to go to Cripple Creek. My aunt is expecting me. Your aunt wants you to be happy. Do you think you will be happy running a boarding house? Amanda considered the question honestly. I do not know. A week ago it seemed like the answer to all my problems. Now I am not so sure. What has changed? Amanda met Sarah's eyes. I met William. Sarah squeezed her hand. Then perhaps you should think about what you really want, not what you think you are supposed to do. The sun was setting, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold, when Amanda finally saw a rider approaching. She ran to the door, flinging it open, relief flooding through her as William dismounted and climbed the porch steps. You are back, she said, and heard the emotion in her own voice. William looked at her, something shifting in his expression. Did you doubt I would be? I worried. I could not help it. I am fine, and I delivered your message. Your aunt sends her regards and says she is relieved you are safe. She understands that you will come when the weather permits. Thank you. Amanda wanted to say more, wanted to tell him how the day had felt empty without him, how her heart had raced with fear and then joy when she saw him return. But the words stuck in her throat, too revealing, too much. They stood there in the doorway, the cold air swirling around them, and Amanda saw in William's eyes that he felt it too, this pull between them, this growing connection that neither of them could deny. Amanda, he said, his voice rough, I need to tell you something. What is it? But before he could answer, Sarah called from the kitchen. Stop letting the cold air in and come eat. Supper is getting cold. William stepped back, the moment broken. We should go inside. They ate supper, and William told them about his ride to Cripple Creek, about the conditions of the trails and the state of the town. But Amanda noticed he was distracted, his mind clearly elsewhere. She wondered what he had been about to say on the porch and whether she would get another chance to hear it. That night, as Amanda lay in bed, she made a decision. She would ask William directly how he felt. She would tell him what was in her heart. Life was too short, too uncertain to hold back. She had learned that lesson in the snow on Christmas Day, and she would not forget it. But the next morning brought an unexpected development. They were finishing breakfast when the sound of horses and voices carried from outside. William frowned and went to the window. Who is it? Sarah asked. Looks like Tom Henderson and his boys. William opened the door as 3 men on horseback approached. The lead rider was an older man with a grizzled beard, bundled in a heavy coat. He dismounted and climbed the porch steps, nodding to William. Morning, Will. Tom, what brings you out here? Heard you had a visitor. Tom's eyes moved to Amanda, standing behind William in the doorway. A young lady who got caught in the Christmas storm. News travels fast, William said carefully. This is Miss Amanda Jenkins, Amanda, this is Tom Henderson. He owns the ranch to the south. Pleased to meet you, Amanda said, though something in Tom's expression made her uneasy. Likewise. Listen, Will, could I have a word? In private, William hesitated, then nodded. Of course. Amanda, Sarah, excuse us. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him, but Amanda moved to the window where she could see the two men talking. She could not hear their words, but she saw William's posture stiffen, saw him shake his head firmly. Tom gestured emphatically, his expression serious. The conversation went on for several minutes before William said something sharp and final, and Tom shrugged and returned to his horse. William came back inside, his jaw tight. That was interesting. What did he want? Sarah asked. To warn me. Apparently there is talk in town about Amanda being here. People are saying it is not proper, an unmarried woman staying at a bachelor's ranch without a chaperone. Amanda felt her stomach drop. But Sarah is here. She is a chaperone. Tom says that is not enough in some people's eyes. He wanted to offer to take you to his ranch where his wife could look after you properly. I hope you told him no, Sarah said indignantly. Of course I did. But he is right about one thing. This could damage Amanda's reputation if we are not careful. Amanda sank into a chair, dismayed. She had not thought about the social implications of her situation. She had been so focused on her gratitude for being rescued, on the growing feelings between her and William, that she had not considered how others might perceive things. I should leave, she said quietly. I should go to Cripple Creek immediately, even if the roads are difficult. No, William's voice was firm. You are not going anywhere until it is safe. I do not care what people say. But if my being here damages your reputation, my reputation can handle it. William crouched in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. Amanda, listen to me. I do not care about gossip. I care about you. I care that you are safe and well. That is all that matters. Amanda looked into his gray eyes and saw the truth there. William, I was going to wait. I was going to give you more time. Let you get to know me better before I said anything. But maybe waiting is a mistake. He took a deep breath. Amanda, these past few days with you here have been the happiest I have had in years. Every morning I wake up looking forward to seeing you. Every night I go to bed thinking about you. You have brought light and warmth back into my life, and I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose you. Amanda's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. What are you saying? I am saying that I am falling in love with you. I know it is fast. I know it is crazy, but it is true. William squeezed her hands. Stay, Amanda, not as a guest, but as my wife. Marry me, and every day will be like Christmas. Every day will be a gift, a celebration, because we will be together. Tears spilled down Amanda's cheeks. William, I barely know you. Then get to know me. Take all the time you need, but do it here as my wife without any question of impropriety or reputation. He smiled, that rare, beautiful smile that transformed his face. I know I am not offering you an easy life. Ranch work is hard, especially in winter. But I promise I will do everything in my power to make you happy. Amanda thought about her life before the storm. The loneliness, the grief, the feeling that she had nothing left to live for. Then she thought about these past few days, the warmth and laughter and growing connection with this good, kind man who had literally saved her life. She thought about Sarah's words, about not dismissing feelings just because they came quickly. She thought about her parents who had loved each other deeply, who had shown her what a good marriage looked like. Yes, she whispered. William's eyes widened. Yes, yes, I will marry you. Amanda was crying and laughing at the same time. I am falling in love with you too, William Garrett. I did not want to admit it, did not want to let myself hope, but you have given me hope. You have given me a future. So yes, I will marry you, and every day will be Christmas. William pulled her to her feet and into his arms, holding her tight. Amanda buried her face against his chest, breathing in the scent of him, leather and soap and wood smoke. She felt his lips press against the top of her head, felt the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. "Thank God," he murmured. "Thank God you said yes." From across the room, Sarah was crying too, wiping her eyes with her apron. "Well, it is about time. I was beginning to think I would have to knock your heads together." They all laughed at that, the tension breaking. William pulled back just far enough to look down at Amanda's face, his hands coming up to cradle her cheeks. "I am going to kiss you now," he said softly, "if that is all right." In answer, Amanda rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. But then William's arms tightened around her, pulling her closer, and Amanda's hands fisted in his shirt, and the kiss deepened, becoming something urgent and hungry and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, and Amanda felt dizzy with happiness. "Every day is Christmas now," William said, echoing his proposal, and Amanda laughed through her tears. "Every day is Christmas." They were married 5 days later, on New Year's Eve of 1883, in the small church in Cripple Creek. The roads had finally cleared enough for travel, and Amanda's Aunt Margaret had come to the ranch to meet her nieces intended and help plan the hasty wedding. Margaret was a warm, practical woman in her 50s who took one look at Amanda and William together and declared that she had never seen two people more suited for each other. "Your mother would have been so happy," she told Amanda as she helped her dress for the ceremony. "She always wanted you to find a good man, someone who would cherish you." "I thought I had lost everything when they died," Amanda said, adjusting the simple white dress Sarah had altered to fit her. "I thought I was alone in the world. And then you found William, or he found you." Margaret smiled. "Sometimes our greatest blessings come from our darkest moments." The ceremony was small and simple, attended only by Margaret, Sarah, Tom Henderson and his wife, and a handful of other ranchers from the surrounding area. The pastor was a cheerful man who had known William since childhood and seemed genuinely delighted to see him marrying at last. Amanda stood at the altar and looked into William's eyes as they exchanged vows, promising to love and honor each other for all the days of their lives. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, and William kissed her in front of everyone, Amanda felt a surge of joy so intense it took her breath away. Afterward, there was a small reception in the church hall, with food provided by the ranchers' wives and fiddle music played by a local prospector. Amanda danced with her new husband, his arms strong around her, and felt like she was floating. "Are you happy?" William asked, his breath warm against her ear. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," Amanda said honestly. "You have given me everything, William. A home, a family, a future. I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it." William pulled back to look at her. "You already deserve it, Amanda. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I am going to do everything I can to give it to you." They stayed at the reception until late, but eventually William announced that it was time to head home. The ride back to the ranch was cold but clear, the stars brilliant overhead. Amanda rode in front of William on his horse, wrapped in his arms in a heavy blanket, feeling safe and warm and utterly content. When they arrived at the ranch, William dismounted and lifted Amanda down, then surprised her by sweeping her up into his arms. "What are you doing?" she laughed. "Carrying my bride over the threshold. It is tradition." He kicked open the door and carried her inside, where a fire was already burning in the hearth, courtesy of Sarah, who had left earlier to prepare the house. The older woman had tactfully retired to her own small cabin behind the main house, giving the newlyweds their privacy. William set Amanda down gently and moved to stoke the fire higher. The main room was warm and welcoming, lit by firelight and oil lamps. Amanda removed her coat and gloves, her heart beginning to race as she realized they were truly alone for the first time as husband and wife. William turned from the fire and looked at her, and Amanda saw her own nervousness and anticipation reflected in his eyes. He crossed the room slowly and took her hands in his. "Amanda, I know this has all happened very fast. If you need time, if you want to wait." She silenced him with a kiss. "I do not want to wait. I want to start our life together. Tonight. Now." William's eyes darkened. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply, and Amanda responded with all the passion she had been holding back. She felt him lift her again, carrying her down the hallway to his bedroom, their bedroom now, and laying her gently on the bed. What followed was tender and passionate, William's hands and lips discovering every inch of her as she learned the feel and taste of him in turn. There was awkwardness at first, nervousness on both sides, but it gave way quickly to desire and then to something deeper, a joining that was as much spiritual as physical. When it was over, they lay tangled together beneath the quilts, Amanda's head on William's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. "I love you," William said, his voice rough with emotion. "I did not think I could feel this way again. I thought that part of my heart had died with Catherine. But you have brought it back to life, Amanda. You have made me whole again." Amanda lifted her head to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his face. "I love you too, and I am grateful every day for the storm that brought me to you. So am I." William smiled. "Though I would prefer not to have another Christmas quite that dramatic." Amanda laughed. "Agreed. From now on, I would like our Christmases to be peaceful and warm with both of us safe inside. We can arrange that." William pulled her closer, and Amanda sighed with contentment, closing her eyes. She drifted off to sleep feeling safer and more loved than she ever had in her life, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges but facing them without fear because she would not face them alone. The winter passed, and Amanda settled into her new life with a sense of rightness that amazed her. She had worried that the transition would be difficult, that she would struggle with the isolation and hard work of ranch life. But to her surprise, she thrived. Sarah taught her everything she needed to know about running a ranch household. Amanda learned to cook hearty meals for the ranch hands William hired in the spring, to preserve fruits and vegetables, to make soap and candles, to sew and mend clothes. She learned to milk cows and churn butter, to tend the vegetable garden, to gather eggs without startling the chickens. She also learned to ride properly. William spent hours teaching her, patient and encouraging as she progressed from nervous beginner to confident horsewoman. By the time spring arrived, Amanda could ride out with William to check on the cattle, could help move the herd to new pastures, could sit a horse for hours without exhaustion. The physical work hardened her body, putting muscle on her slender frame, but it also freed her mind. In St. Louis and Denver, she had been trapped inside, confined by social expectations and circumstances. Here, she could ride for miles across open land, could feel the sun on her face and the wind in her hair. She felt more alive, more herself than she ever had before. And through it all, there was William. Every day, Amanda fell more deeply in love with her husband. She loved waking up beside him, loved the way he reached for her in his sleep. She loved watching him work, the competence and strength in every movement. She loved their conversations in the evening, sitting together by the fire, discussing plans for the ranch or simply sharing the events of their day. She loved the way he looked at her, as if she was the most precious thing in his world. Their physical relationship deepened too, the initial awkwardness giving way to a passionate connection that left them both breathless. William was a considerate lover, always attentive to her pleasure, and Amanda discovered depths of passion in herself she had not known existed. By the time summer arrived, Amanda realized she was completely and utterly happy. The grief she had carried for so long, the heavy weight of loss and loneliness, had lifted. She would always miss her parents, would always carry a piece of sadness for their absence, but it no longer defined her. She had a new family now, a new life, and it was more than she had ever dared to hope for. One warm evening in July, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, Amanda realized she had news to share. She had been certain for a few weeks but had waited to tell William, wanting to be absolutely sure. "William," she said, taking his hand, "I have something to tell you." He looked at her, immediately attentive. "What is it?" "I am with child. We are going to have a baby." William's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, then pure joy. He pulled Amanda into his arms, holding her tight. "A baby," he whispered. "We are going to have a baby. In February, I think, around Valentine's Day." William pulled back, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Amanda, you have given me everything. A wife, a family, a future. I do not know what I did to deserve such blessings, but I thank God for them every day." "You saved my life," Amanda said simply. "You brought me home. Everything else follows from that." They told Sarah that evening, and the older woman wept with happiness, immediately beginning to plan for the baby's arrival. Over the following months, she knitted blankets and tiny clothes, and helped Amanda prepare a nursery in one of the spare bedrooms. Amanda's Aunt Margaret visited often from Cripple Creek, bringing supplies and advice. The pregnancy was easier than Amanda had feared. She had some sickness in the early months, but nothing severe. As her belly grew, William became increasingly protective, insisting she not overwork herself, always making sure she was comfortable. Amanda found his concern endearing, though she sometimes had to remind him that she was pregnant, not fragile. Winter came again, bringing snow and cold, but this time Amanda faced it from the warmth and safety of her home, with her husband's arms around her and their child growing inside her. On Christmas Day, exactly 1 year after William had found her in the storm, they sat together by the fire and reflected on how much had changed. "A year ago, I thought I was going to die," Amanda said, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "Now look at us. Married, with a baby on the way, surrounded by people we love. It is a miracle." "You are the miracle," William said, kissing her softly. "You came into my life when I had given up hope of ever being truly happy again. You changed everything." "We changed everything together," Amanda corrected. "And we will keep changing things together, for the rest of our lives." Their son was born on a cold February morning in 1885. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when William feared he might lose Amanda, but she fought through with a strength that awed him. When the baby finally arrived, squalling and red-faced and perfect, Amanda cradled him against her chest and wept with exhaustion and joy. "What should we name him?" William asked, stroking the baby's downy dark hair with one gentle finger. Amanda looked up at her husband, at this man who had given her a second chance at life. "Thomas," she said, "after your father, Thomas William Garrett." William's eyes filled with tears. "My father would have been honored, and so am I." Little Thomas, as they called him to distinguish him from Tom Henderson, was a healthy, happy baby. He had his father's gray eyes and his mother's auburn hair, and he quickly became the center of their world. Sarah doted on him shamelessly, and Margaret visited as often as she could to spoil her great-nephew. The first years of Thomas's life were busy and chaotic, but filled with love. Amanda learned to manage the household while caring for an infant, and William adjusted to sleepless nights and the constant demands of fatherhood. But they did it together, supporting each other, and their bond only grew stronger. When Thomas was 2 years old, Amanda became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and their daughter was born in the early autumn of 1887. They named her Catherine Rose, after William's lost fiancée and Amanda's mother. William held his daughter for the first time and looked at Amanda with such love and gratitude that she felt her heart might burst. "Thank you," he said, "for everything, for our family, for our life, for saying yes to a proposal from a man you barely knew." "It was the best decision I ever made," Amanda said honestly. The years passed in a blur of growth and change. Thomas grew into a sturdy boy who followed his father everywhere, learning the ways of the ranch. Catherine was a sweet, gentle child who loved helping her mother in the garden and caring for the chickens. In 1890, they had another son, Samuel, who had William's dark hair and Amanda's green eyes. And in 1893, their family was completed with the birth of another daughter, Grace, a joyful child who brought laughter into every room she entered. The ranch prospered under William's management. He expanded the herd, improved the breeding program for the horses, and became known throughout the region as a fair and honest businessman. Amanda managed the household and the finances, her head for numbers proving invaluable. Together, they built something lasting, something they could pass on to their children. Sarah remained with them until her death in 1895, passing peacefully in her sleep at the age of 70. They buried her in the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the ranch, and Amanda mourned the woman who had been like a mother to her. But she also celebrated Sarah's life, grateful for the years they had shared. Amanda's Aunt Margaret lived to see all 4 of her great-nieces and great-nephews, visiting the ranch often and bringing gifts and stories. She passed in 1898, and Amanda grieved for the last connection to her parents. But she had her own family now, her own legacy. As the new century dawned, Amanda and William found themselves in their 40s, their children growing up around them. Thomas was 15, already a skilled ranch hand who talked about expanding the operation. Catherine was 13, beautiful and kind with her father's quiet strength. Samuel was 10, adventurous and bold. And Grace was 7, the baby of the family, though she hated being called that. One Christmas Eve, as they all gathered around the fire, the children opening their presents while a light snow fell outside, William took Amanda's hand and led her out onto the porch. The air was cold but still, and stars glittered overhead. "You remember the first time we stood here together?" William asked. "I remember everything about that day," Amanda said. "I remember thinking I was going to die. I remember you appearing out of the storm like an answer to prayer. I remember coming inside this house and feeling, for the first time since my parents died, that I might have a future. And what a future it has been." William put his arm around her, pulling her close against his side. 17 years, Amanda. 17 years of love and laughter and building a life together. I would not change a single moment. Neither would I. Amanda looked up at the stars, thinking about that frightened girl who had gotten lost in a snowstorm so long ago. She could barely remember being her. That girl had been broken, lost, without hope. But she had survived, and she had been found, and she had built a beautiful life from the ashes of her old one. "Every day truly has been Christmas," she said softly. "Every day has been a gift. And every day will continue to be," William said, "as long as we are together." From inside the house, they heard the children's laughter, Grace's voice raised in excitement over some new treasure. Amanda smiled and leaned her head against William's shoulder, breathing in the cold, crisp air, feeling the warmth of her husband beside her and knowing that inside, her children were warm and safe and loved. This was her life now. This was her family. And she had found it all because of one terrible storm and one good man who had refused to let her die alone in the snow. "Merry Christmas, William," she whispered. "Merry Christmas, my love," and many more to come. They stood together on the porch for a few minutes longer, looking out at the snow-covered ranch, at the life they had built together. Then, hand in hand, they went back inside to their children, to the warmth and light and love that filled every corner of their home. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. The children grew and changed, finding their own paths in the world. Thomas took over more and more of the ranch operations, eventually marrying a sweet girl named Emma from Cripple Creek in 1905. They built a house on the southern edge of the ranch property, and soon started a family of their own, making William and Amanda grandparents. Catherine surprised everyone by deciding to become a teacher. She attended normal school in Denver and returned to Cripple Creek to teach at the local schoolhouse. She married late, at 28, to a kind mining engineer named Robert who adored her. Samuel inherited his parents' adventurous spirit. After finishing school, he decided to try his hand at mining, working claims around Cripple Creek during the gold rush years. He eventually found modest success and married a spirited young woman named Alice who matched his energy perfectly. Grace, the baby, was the one who stayed closest to home. She never wanted to leave the ranch, and she worked alongside her father and brother with a dedication that impressed everyone. She married a neighboring rancher's son named James in 1910, and they built their home on the northern section of the property. By 1915, William and Amanda found themselves in their 50s, surrounded by children and grandchildren. The ranch had expanded significantly, now encompassing over 1,000 acres and supporting not just one family but several. William had successfully passed on his knowledge to the next generation, and Thomas was running the daily operations with skill and confidence. Amanda still managed the household, though with less intensity than in her younger years. She had time now for things she loved: her garden, her reading, long rides across the ranch with William. They had weathered storms together, both literal and metaphorical, and their love had only deepened with time. One spring morning, as they sat together on the porch drinking coffee and watching the sunrise, William suddenly said, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I had not found you that day?" Amanda considered the question. "Sometimes, but not often. It feels like such a distant possibility now, like something from another lifetime." "You would have died," William said quietly. "If I had been 5 minutes later, if I had chosen a different path, if I had decided to check the cattle the next day instead of that day, you would have frozen to death, and I never would have known you existed. But you did find me. You did take that path, on that day, at that exact time. And that is what matters." William took her hand, his thumb tracing familiar patterns on her palm. "I used to think it was just luck, being in the right place at the right time, but now I think it was something more. Divine providence, maybe, fate. Whatever you want to call it, I think we were meant to find each other." "I think so too," Amanda said. "Everything I went through, losing my parents, selling everything I owned, making that desperate journey to Cripple Creek, it all led me to you. And I would do it all again, 1,000 times over, if it meant ending up here." William leaned over and kissed her, a gentle kiss that still held all the warmth and passion of their early days. "I love you, Amanda Garrett. I have loved you from the moment I saw you in the snow, and I will love you until the day I die." "And I love you," Amanda said. "My Christmas miracle, my answered prayer." The decades continued their steady march. The children had children of their own, and the ranch became a sprawling family compound with multiple households. William eventually retired from active ranch work, though he could still be found most mornings walking the property, checking on things, offering advice when asked. Amanda's hair turned silver, and William's moved from gray to white. They moved more slowly, their bodies bearing the marks of years of hard work and mountain living. But their minds remained sharp, and their love for each other never dimmed. They celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary on New Year's Eve of 1923, surrounded by their 4 children, 15 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. It was a joyous occasion, held in the main ranch house that had been expanded and renovated over the years, but still retained its essential character. As the family gathered around them, Thomas stood and raised his glass. "To my parents," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who taught us what love looks like, what commitment looks like, what family means. Everything we have, everything we are, we owe to you." Catherine spoke next. "You gave us roots and wings. You showed us how to work hard and how to love harder. Thank you for being the foundation of this family." Samuel and Grace added their own tributes, and by the time they were finished, there was not a dry eye in the room. William stood, his arm around Amanda's shoulders, and addressed their family. "Your mother and I have been blessed beyond measure," he said. "When I found her in that snowstorm 40 years ago, I had no idea I was finding my whole future. I was just trying to save a life, but she saved mine right back. She brought light and love into a house that had grown dark and cold. She gave me a reason to look forward instead of back. And together we built all of this." He gestured to encompass the room, the family, the ranch beyond. "This is our legacy. Not the land, not the cattle, but all of you. Love each other, support each other, stick together. That is all we ask." Amanda added, "And remember that the best things in life often come from the hardest times. When I was lost in that storm, I thought my life was ending. But it was just beginning. So when you face difficulties, and you will, remember that better days are ahead. Hold on. Keep faith. And never, ever give up on love." The party lasted late into the night, with music and dancing and stories. But eventually, Amanda and William slipped away to their bedroom, leaving the celebration to the younger generation. William helped Amanda undress, his hands gentle and familiar as he had done thousands of times over the decades. They climbed into bed together, and Amanda curled against his side as she had every night for 40 years. "Tired?" William asked, exhausted, but happy. Amanda sighed contentedly. "What a beautiful night, what a beautiful life. It has been, has it not?" William's voice was soft in the darkness, "better than anything I could have imagined." "Do you ever wonder how much time we have left?" Amanda asked. "We are getting old, William, I know, but I am not afraid. Whatever time we have, we will face it together, just like we have faced everything else." "Together," Amanda agreed, "always together." They drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the sounds of their family, secure in the knowledge that they had built something that would last long after they were gone. The years that followed were quieter. William and Amanda became the matriarch and patriarch of a sprawling family dynasty. They spent their days in peaceful routine, still devoted to each other, still finding joy in simple pleasures. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon rides when the weather was good, evenings by the fire, reading or talking or simply sitting in comfortable silence. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren came to visit, climbing on their laps, begging for stories. Amanda and William obliged, telling tales of the old days, of how the ranch was built, of the hard winters and good summers, of horses and cattle and the wild land that had been tamed through generations of hard work. But the story the grandchildren loved best was the story of how their grandparents met. They never tired of hearing about the Christmas storm, about grandmother Amanda lost in the snow, about grandfather William riding out to check his cattle and finding her just in time, about how he had brought her home and they had fallen in love and gotten married just days later. And he said, "Every day is Christmas now," Amanda would finish, her eyes sparkling. And it was true. Every single day has been a gift. William passed away in his sleep in the winter of 1932 at the age of 80. Amanda woke one morning to find him beside her, peaceful and still, gone to whatever waited beyond. She held his hand and wept, mourning the loss of her partner, her love, her best friend. But she did not despair. They had had nearly 50 years together, 50 years of love and laughter and building a life. That was more than most people ever got. The funeral was held on a clear, cold day, the mountains stark and beautiful against a brilliant blue sky. It seemed like half of Colorado showed up to pay their respects. William had been well loved and respected throughout the region, known for his fairness, his honesty, and his generosity. The family buried him in the cemetery on the hill, next to Sarah, and not far from where they would eventually lay Amanda to rest as well. Amanda lived for another 5 years after William's death. She remained at the ranch, cared for by her children and grandchildren, still mentally sharp even as her body grew frail. She spent her days much as she had when William was alive, though now she sat alone on the porch with her coffee, alone by the fire in the evenings. But she was not lonely. She felt William's presence everywhere, in every corner of the house they had shared, in every view from the porch, in the laughter of their descendants. She passed away peacefully in the spring of 1937, at the age of 75, surrounded by her children. Her last words were, "I am coming, William, wait for me." They buried her beside her husband on the hill, and the whole family gathered to say goodbye. Thomas, now in his 50s and a grandfather himself, spoke at the service. "Our mother taught us that love can transform everything," he said. She came to this ranch a broken young woman who had lost everything. But she found love, and that love gave her the strength to build a new life. She and our father created something lasting, something that will continue for generations. We stand here today as proof of that. We are their legacy. And we will honor their memory by loving each other as they loved each other, by working hard as they worked hard, by never giving up on family as they never gave up on family. Years later, the ranch still stood, now run by the third and fourth generations of Garretts. The main house had been preserved as much as possible, kept as a reminder of where everything had started. Children and grandchildren still grew up hearing the story of Amanda and William, of the Christmas storm and the cowboy who brought the lost woman home, of the love that had transformed both their lives and created a dynasty. And every Christmas, the entire family gathered at the ranch, filling the house with the same warmth and love that Amanda and William had created so many years ago. They told the story again, keeping it alive, making sure that no one ever forgot the miracle that had happened on that cold Christmas day in 1883. "Every day is Christmas now," William had said when he proposed, promising Amanda a life filled with love and joy, and he had kept that promise. For 48 years, every day had been Christmas. Every day had been a celebration. Every day had been a gift. And that gift continued to give, generation after generation, a legacy of love that would never die. The ranch still stood strong in the Colorado mountains, a testament to what two people could build when they loved each other with their whole hearts. The land they had worked was now worked by their descendants. The house they had filled with laughter still rang with the voices of children. The love they had shared still lived on in the family they had created, Amanda and William's story had started with a storm and a rescue, with desperation and hope, with a man who refused to let a stranger die and a woman who found the courage to love again. It was a story that had been passed down through the generations, told and retold until it became legend. But to those who knew them, to the children who had climbed on their laps and the grandchildren who had learned to ride on horses they had bred, it was not legend. It was simply the truth. Two people had found each other against all odds. They had fallen in love. They had built a life together. And that life had become a legacy that would endure as long as the mountains themselves. Every day had been Christmas. Every day had been a gift. And the gift kept giving, long after they were gone, in the hearts and lives of everyone they had touched. That was the true miracle of Amanda and William's love. Not just that it had saved them both, but that it continued to save, to inspire, to give hope to everyone who heard their story. Love could transform everything. Love could build empires from ashes. Love could turn a near tragedy into a triumph that echoed through the ages. And it all started with a cowboy riding out into a Christmas storm, refusing to ignore a stranger's need, bringing her home and promising her that every day would be Christmas from then on. He had kept that promise. And the proof stood all around, in the ranch that flourished, in the family that thrived, in the love that never died. Every day was Christmas. Every day was a miracle. Every day was a gift. And so the story ended where it began, with love, with hope, with the promise that even in the darkest storm, salvation could come riding out of the snow. Amanda and William Garrett lived, loved, and left behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Their story was complete, their ending happy, their love eternal. And somewhere, on a hill overlooking a ranch in the Colorado mountains, two graves stood side by side, marking the resting place of a man who had saved a life and a woman who had been saved, whose love had created something beautiful that would last forever. The end.